When 46-year-old Philip Seymour Hoffman was found dead in his New York City apartment over the weekend.
Tonight, the body of the acclaimed actor and a father of three, Philip Seymour Hoffman, remains inside this West Village
apartment. Following out of New York, a tragic end.
When 46-year-old Philip Seymour Hoffman was found dead in his New York City apartment over the weekend, tonight, the body of the acclaimed actor and a father of three, Philip Seymour Hoffman, remains inside this West Village out of New York. A tragic end 12 years ago. His death was reported quietly wrapped in vague headlines and unanswered questions. For years, people believed they knew the story. But that truth was far more painful and complicated. Behind the scenes, he was battling a deep addiction that began in his early 20s and followed him into his final days. Those closest to him, including his partner, Mimi O'Donnell, and longtime friends. Now, speak about what really happened during those heartbreaking years. In an effort to protect the people, he moved into a separate apartment, hoping distance might keep his family safe. But instead of finding peace, his addiction grew stronger. And that struggle ended tragically when he was found alone in the bathroom of Today, after more than a decade, the full story finally comes into the light. Philip Seymour Hoffman was born on July 23 RD. 1967 in Fairport, New York, to Marilyn Ockenor and Gordon Stoll Hoffman, one of four children in a household shaped by perseverance. His mother, determined and driven, balanced raising her family while learning a degree and eventually became a family court judge, leaving a lasting imprint on him. Though baptized Catholic, religion never defined his life. By age 9, his parents' divorce had pushed his mother into the role of primary caregiver, while his father receded from daily life. At 12, Hoffman discovered the arts, seeing All My Sons on stage, followed between more plays, including one starring a young Robert Downey Jr. The spark of fascination grew, nurtured by his mother's encouragement, unknowingly guiding him toward extraordinary heights and latter devastating depths. As a boy, he loved sports, especially baseball, but a severe neck injury at 14 ended that path abruptly. Searching for purpose, he found solace in his school drama club, stepping onto the stage with his mother's unwavering support and never leaving it. Hoffman graduated from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts in 1989 with a drama degree. And fragile optimism. While opportunities emerged, work was inconsistent, survival jobs fleeting, and stability remained elusive. Just as his career showed promise, the quiet gathering of shadows hinted that darker chapters were looming, signaling struggles yet to come. Philip Seymour Hoffman's first encounter with addiction began quietly, masked by heavy partying in New York City, a place where excess often felt normal. What started with drinking quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous. Alcohol was only the beginning. Soon, he was using whatever substances were, sinking faster and deeper than he ever expected by the time he turned 22. Fear cut through the haze. He realized this path would destroy him if he didn't stop. That panic became clarity. At just 22 years old, Hoffman checked himself into rehab, a decision that would shape the next 20 years of his sobriety. Gave his talent room to grow, allowing his acting to finally take center stage. His focus sharpened, his performances dimmed, and real opportunities began to appear still. Those closest to him understood truth beneath the recovery. His longtime partner, Mimi O'Donnell, later said that being clean didn't mean addiction disappeared. It simply went, the struggle never truly left. Hoffman's screen debut came in 1991, with a small role on Law and Order. Brief but memorable, he appeared in his first film and added Seymour to his name, Tovoid. Confusion with another actor, those early steps led to In 1992, after 5 auditions, Hoffman landed a role in Martin Brest's of a Woman alongside Al Pacino. The film was a major success, earning $134 million worldwide and changing his life overnight. Hoffman later admitted that without that, his career might never have taken shape. Buoyed by that breakthrough, he took a leap of faith. He quit his deli job and committed fully to acting. The risk paid off. He began collaborating with bold filmmakers like Paul Thomas Anderson and the Coen brothers. And by the late 1990s, his star was clearly rising. Hoffman carved out a rare space for himself, embracing characters losers, outsiders, deeply unsettling figures, even a drag performer. No matter how uncomfortable the role, his performances were raw, empathetic, and unforgettable. Critics praised his fearless honesty, and fellow actors took notice. Meryl Streep, one of his idols, once said Hegov even the most troubling character's dignity and depth. And yet, as powerful as these roles were, they were only building toward the most defining chapter of his career, one still waiting ahead. In the early 2000s, Hoffman's career soared as he took on an ever-expanding grandeur of roles, each more daring and complex than the last. Around the same time, in 1999, fate quietly brought Mimi O'Donnell into his life. She had joined a project as a costume designer, and Hoffman would soon discover that their connection was far deeper. Both were involved with their people when they first met, which delayed romance, but allowed a different kind of closeness to grow. Mimi later said, "They fell in love artistically first, drawn to each other's minds and creativity before their hearts truly opened by 2001. As they began a relationship, Hoffman revealed the shadow he had carried for years, his past struggles with addiction. Though he had been sober for nearly a decade, he felt it was essential to be honest with Mimi. She recalls his frankness and the gravity with which he treated his story. Fortunately, that darkness seemed confined to the past, leaving room for love, trust, and partnership. Professionally, Hoffman continued to reach new heights. In 2005, he took on the lead in Capote, portraying the enigmatic and controversial writer Truman, whose in cold blood had shocked the world decades earlier. Philip Seymour Hoffman approached Capote with the same total immersion that defined his career. For over 4 months, he studied Truman Capote's mannerism and nuance, reshaping his body and voice to fit the eccentric author. "The part required me to be a little balanced," Hoffman admitted later. "And that wasn't good for my mental." Between takes, he never let himself relax, fearing his body miserable if he stepped out of character. His respect for the humanity and the people he portrayed was profound. He didn't just imitate, he inhabited them. The results were extraordinary. When Capote premiered in 2005, Hoffman earned the Academy Award for Best Actor, his first Oscar, and his first major award for a leading role in film. Recognition for his work on stage and in supporting roles had come before, but this was his crowning engagement. Despite this, Hoffman remained focused on the work itself. In interviews, he explained why he gravitated toward flawed or troubled characters. "I didn't go out looking for I went out looking for people who have a struggle and a fight to tackle. That's what interests me yet." Hollywood and the public often reduced him to superficial labels. Stocky, fair-skinned, Hoffman joked that no one had ever called him cute, highlighting the tension between his immense talent and how he was perceived. By the 2000s, Hoffman had become a household name, and Ventura Dento, directing with 2012's Jack Goes A-Boating. Critics, however, were harsh, dismissing the film as forgettable. Acting remained his true domain, and he continued to balance challenging Gardict projects like Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master with including the Hunger Games franchise, which introduced him to young. His work was reaching wider circles than ever before, and his reputation as one of the most versatile actors of his generation was solidified. Yet even at the height of fame, tragedy lingered quietly. The man who gave himself so completely to his craft carried burdens, unseen by most. For all accolades and triumphs, shadows from his past and the intensity of his art were never far behind, reminding Thor that Philip Seymour Hoffman's brilliance was inseparable from his humanity and the struggles that shaped him. After his death, after his passing, Mimi O'Donnell revealed the mounting pressures Hoffman faced in his aging, the unraveling of friends' marriages, and the death of his therapist to cancer weighed heavily on him. Even his connections through became complicated, and his relationship with, acting a lifelong passion, had turned into a turbulent mix of love and loathing. Hoffman admitted in 2012, "The job isn't difficult. Doing it well is difficult to him. Acting was both irresistible and torturous. The pursuit of greatness, a constant strain," authored John Lair, who worked closely with Hoffman on A Most Wanted Man, noted the intensity of his process, describing as painful and exhausting, perhaps a sign of the limits Hoffman could bear. External pressures began to mount. Mimi recalled a troubling moment when Hoffman asked her thoughts on drinking again. asthmal slip that became a pattern of occasional drinks per week. At first, it seemed manageable, but the fragile balance eventually tipped, drawing him back into a shadow he had long fought to live behind. The shadows of Hoffman's past addictions had returned with full force for an entire year. He struggled with prescription drugs alongside alcohol, resurrecting demons he had battled more than 2 decades earlier. Unpredictable, volatile, his behavior grew concerning. He even fell asleep during interviews while promoting the Master at Venice Film Festival in early 2013. The spiral worsened when he turned to an even more dangerous substance. After a week, he voluntarily added himself to a detox facility for 10 days, hoping to halt the destruction. But the effort was only
years, aging, the unraveling of friends' marriages, and the death of his therapist to cancer weighed heavily on him. Even his connections through AA became complicated, and his relationship with acting, a lifelong passion, had turned into a turbulent mix of love and loathing. Hoffman admitted in 2012, "The job isn't difficult. Doing it well is difficult." To him, acting was both irresistible and torturous, the pursuit of greatness a constant strain. Author John le Carré, who worked closely with Hoffman on A Most Wanted Man, noted the intensity of his process, describing it as painful and exhausting, perhaps a sign of the limits Hoffman could bear. External pressures began to mount. Mimi recalled a troubling moment when Hoffman asked her thoughts on drinking again, a small slip that became a pattern of occasional drinks per week. At first it seemed manageable, but the fragile balance eventually tipped, drawing him back into a shadow he had long fought to leave behind. By 2012, the shadows of Hoffman's past addictions had returned with full force. For an entire year, he struggled with prescription drugs alongside alcohol, resurrecting demons he had battled more than 2 decades earlier. Unpredictable and volatile, his behavior grew concerning. He even fell asleep during interviews while promoting The Master at the Venice Film Festival. In early 2013, the spiral worsened when he turned to an even more dangerous substance. After a week, he voluntarily admitted himself to a detox facility for 10 days, hoping to halt the destructive cycle. But the effort was only partially successful. Upon leaving, Hoffman and Mimi agreed he would move into an apartment near their family home, keeping him close yet allowing their children to remain protected from his struggles. The arrangement, however, often left him alone, isolated with his temptations. Rumors swirled that their relationship was faltering, but Mimi later confirmed that their bond remained strong. She stayed steadfast, supporting him while constantly fearing for his safety. "Every day was filled with worry," she said. "Every night when he went out, I wondered, will I ever see him again?" Though their partnership endured, Hoffman's life had entered a turbulent chapter, and Mimi's fears only deepened as his downward path continued, a tragic reminder that his brilliance always lived alongside profound vulnerability. By late 2013, Hoffman's struggle with addiction had resurfaced with a familiar intensity. He had returned to the non-prescription substances that had haunted him decades earlier, unable to fully control his urges despite valiant efforts. Recognizing the danger, he admitted himself into rehab once again. Even a week into this attempt at recovery, he realized he needed intensive support to reclaim his life. But his time in the facility proved far more difficult than anyone expected. Close friend Shalom Auslander later revealed that Hoffman's privacy had been violated in shocking ways. Another patient at the facility secretly filmed him during group therapy sessions and sold the tapes to a news website. The outlet allegedly attempted to use the material to coerce Hoffman into granting an exclusive interview, threatening to expose the intimate details of his addiction if he refused. Out of concern for his 3 children, Hoffman reluctantly agreed to the interview, a grim reminder of how the external pressures of fame collided with his personal struggles. After completing a full detox, Hoffman left the facility in late 2013, appearing to emerge with a near-clean slate. He expressed gratitude for the unwavering support of his family and friends, and there were moments of hope that he could rebuild his sobriety. Yet the toll of recovery lingered. On the set of Happy-ish, the TV series he was filming with Shalom, Hoffman appeared irritable and erratic, a likely consequence of the lingering effects of detox, nausea, pain, and exhaustion. Shalom later admitted he felt frustrated with himself for not recognizing the signs of relapse sooner. Still, in those final days of filming, Hoffman showed glimpses of his old self. He and Shalom discussed the future of the show, plans for scripts, and possibilities ahead. During a farewell, Shalom half-jokingly said, "Don't go die on me." Hoffman laughed, never knowing how tragically prophetic those words would become. At home, Mimi O'Donnell noticed Hoffman withdrawing. While he had temporarily abandoned substances during work on the Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 2, isolation and secrecy suggested deeper struggles. Mimi urged friends and family to check in, sensing that something was amiss. Despite her efforts, Hoffman slipped back into substance use. This time, however, the relapse ended far too swiftly. Within days, Mimi lost the love of her life and the father of her children. Though she had feared the possibility from the moment he began using again, the shock of his sudden passing was devastating.